Good evening and welcome to our daily devotional reading. A special welcome to the members of our monastery, our make-believe monastery, those who are subscribed and or commenting. A different kind of special welcome to those who are just dropping in for the day. You are most welcome as well. We are reading through the works of Plato in 1 year. We are currently with Cratylus, a dialogue on etymology, and finally Alex posted his video with the etymologist. I was beginning to fear that people will think that I'm a false prophetess, that I see things that do not come to pass. But now you know that's not true. What I see is real. I shut my eyes in order to see. That is a quote from an artist. I have it on a pillow. I cannot see the name of the artist at the moment. But let's shut our eyes for a moment, turn inward to truly see, to truly hear. You may keep your eyes shut if you wish, or you may open it with me. I do need to open my eyes so that I can read Plato. Hermogenes. Indeed, Socrates, you make surprising progress. Socrates. I am run away with. Hermogenes. Very true. Socrates. But I am not yet at my utmost speed. Hermogenes. I should very much like to know, in the next place, how you would explain the virtues. What principle of correctness is there in those charming words? Wisdom, understanding, justice, and the rest of them. Socrates. That is a tremendous class of names which you are entering. Still, as I have put on the lion's skin, I must not be faint of heart. And I suppose that I must consider the meaning of wisdom, here phronesis, and understanding, sunesis, and judgment, nome, and knowledge, episteme, and all those other charming words, as you call them. Hermogenes, surely we must not leave off until we find out their meaning. Socrates. By the dog of Egypt, I have not bad notion. I have a not bad notion which come into my head only this moment. The dog of Egypt. Is Thoth a dog? Thoth is the god of writing and in language, so probably he looks more, the picture I have is more of a jackal, but maybe that's close enough to a god. A dog. Socrates. I believe that the primeval givers of names were undoubtedly like too many of our modern philosophers, who, in their search after the nature of things, are always getting dizzy from constantly going round and round, and then they imagine that the world is going round and moving in all directions. And this appearance, which arises out of their own internal condition, they suppose to be a reality of nature. They think that there is nothing stable or permanent, but only flux and motion, and that the world is always full of every sort of motion and change. The consideration of the names which I mentioned has led me into making this reflection. Hermogenes, how is that, Socrates? Socrates, perhaps you did not observe that in the names which we have just cited, the motion or flux or generation of things is most surely indicated. No, indeed, I never thought of it. Socrates, take the first of those which you mentioned. Clearly that is a name indicative of motion. What was the name? Socrates, phronesis, wisdom, which may signify phoras kai rou nuesis, perception of motion and flux. Or perhaps prosas onesis, the blessing of motion. But is at any rate connected with peresthai, motion. Nome, judgment, again, certainly implies the ponderation of consideration, nomesis of generation. A lot of Asians. For to ponder is the same as to consider. Or if you would rather, here is noesis, the very word just now mentioned, which is neoesis, the desire of the new. The word nous implies that the world is always in process of creation. The giver of the name wanted to express the longing of the soul, for the original name was noesis and not nuesis. But eta took the place of the double epsilon. The word sophrosune, that is moderation. I don't know why. Temperance, I think. Is the salvation, soteria, of that wisdom, phronesis, which we were just now considering. Epoeteme, knowledge, it's written epoeteme, it should be episteme, I think. Knowledge is akin to this and indicates that the soul which is good for anything follows, epitai, then motion of things, neither anticipating them or falling behind them. Therefore the word should rather be read as episteme, inserting epsilon nu. Epistene. Sunesis, understanding, may be regarded in like manner as a kind of conclusion. The word is derived from suneinai, to go along with, and like epistasthai, to know, implies the progression of the soul in company with the nature of things. Sophia, wisdom, another word for wisdom. More theoretical wisdom, yeah. Sophia is very dark and appears not to be of native growth. The meaning is touching the motion or stream of things. You must remember that the poets, when they speak of the commencement of any rapid motion, often use the word esouthe, he rushed. And there was a famous Lacedaemonian who was named sus, rush. For by this word the Lacedaemonians signify rapid motion, and the touching epathe of motion is expressed by Sophia, for all things are supposed to be in motion. Good, agathon, is the name which is given to the admirable agasto in nature. For although all things move, still there are degrees of motion. Some are swifter, some slower. But there are some things which are admirable for their swiftness. And this admirable part of nature is called agathon. Dikaiosune, justice, is clearly dikaiousunesis, understanding of the just. But the actual word dikaion is more difficult. Men are only agreed to a certain extent about justice, and then they begin to disagree. For those who suppose all things to be in motion, conceive the greater part of nature to be a mere receptacle, and they say that there is a penetrating power which passes through all this, and in this instrument of creation, and is the instrument of creation in all, and is the subtlest and swiftest element. For if it were not the subtlest, and the power which none can keep out, and also the swiftest, passing by other things as if they were standing still, it could not penetrate through the moving universe. And this element, which superintends all things and pierces dion all, is rightly called dikaion. The letter K is only added for the sake of euphony. Thus far, as I was saying, there is a great general agreement about the nature of justice. But I, Hermogenes, being an enthusiastic disciple, have been told in a mystery that the justice of which I am speaking is also the cause of the world. Now a cause is that because of which anything is created. And someone comes and whispers in my ear that justice is rightly so called because partaking of the nature of the cause. And I begin, after hearing what he has said, to interrogate him gently. Well, my excellent friend, I say, but if all this be true, I still want to know what is justice. Whereupon they think that I ask tiresome questions, and am leaping over the barriers, and have been already sufficiently answered. And they try to satisfy me with one derivation after another, and at length they quarrel. For one of them says that justice is the sun, and that he only is the piercing dianonta and burning coanta element which is the guardian of nature. And when I joyfully repeat this beautiful notion, I am answered by the satirical remark, "What, is there no justice in the world when the sun is down?" And when I earnestly beg my questioner to tell me his own honest opinion, he says, "Fire in the abstract. But this is not very intelligible." Another says, "No, not fire in the abstract, but the abstraction of heat in the fire." Another man professes to laugh at all this, and says, as Anaxagoras says, that justice is mind, for mind, as they say, has absolute power, and mixes with nothing, and orders all things, and passes through all things. At last, my friend, I find myself in far greater perplexity about the nature of justice than I was before I began to learn. But still, I am of opinion that the name which has led me into this digression as was given to justice for the reasons which I have mentioned. Hermogenes. I think, Socrates, that you are not improvising now. You must have heard these from someone else. Socrates. And not the rest? Hermogenes. Hardly. Socrates. Well then, let me go on, in the hope of making you believe in the originality of the rest. What remains after justice? I do not think that we have as yet discussed courage, Andrea, injustice, adikia, which is obviously nothing more than a hindrance to the penetrating principle, diaiontos, need not be considered. Well then, the name of Andrea seems to imply a battle. This battle is the world of existence, and according to the doctrine of flux, is only the counterflux, en antiaron. If you extract the delta from Andrea, the name at once signifies the thing, and you may clearly understand that Andrea is not a stream opposed to every stream, but only to that which is contrary to justice. For otherwise courage would not have been praised. The words aren, male, and aner, man, also contain a similar allusion to the same principle of upward flux. Reanuron, gune, woman, I suspect to be the same word as gun, birth. Thelu, female, appears to be partly derived from thele, the breast, because the teat, he says, is the like raw rain and makes blinks flourish. Tetelenai, Hermogenes. That is surely probable. Socrates. Yes, and the very word talein, to flourish, seems to figure the growth of youth, which is swift and sudden ever. And this is expressed by the legislator in the name, which is a compound of thein, running, and alestai, leaping. Pray observe how I gallop away when I get on smooth ground. There are a good many names generally thought of to be of importance, which have still to be explained. Hermogenes, true. Socrates, there is the meaning of the word techne, art, for example, art or craft. Very true. Socrates, that may be identified with echonue and express the possession of mind. You have only to take away the tau and insert two omicrons, one between the chi and nu. Is there there's a chi. And another between the nu and eta. Hermogenes. That is a very shabby etymology. Socrates. Yes, my dear friend. But then you know that the original names have been long ago buried and disguised by people sticking on and stripping off letters for the sake of euphony, and twisting and bedizing them in all sorts of ways. And time too may have had a share in the change. Take, for example, the word katuthron. Why is the letter rho inserted? This must surely be the addition of someone who cares nothing about the truth, but thinks only of putting the mouth into shape. And the additions are often such that at last no human being can possibly make out the original meaning of the word. Another example is the word psychos, which ought properly be swix or psyxos. And there are other examples. That is true, Socrates. And yet, if you are permitted to put in and pull out any letters which you please, names will be too easily made, and any name may be adapted to any object. true. Socrates, yes, that is true. And therefore a wise dictator like yourself should observe the laws of moderation and probability. Hermogenes, such is my desire. Socrates, and mine too, Hermogenes. But do not be too much of a precision, or you will unnerve me of my strength. From the Iliad, a quote. Thus far our scripture of the evening. Constantly throughout this passage, I was thinking this would make such good material for a dialectic into Dialogos. I think one could spend a whole week or more, maybe something to do on the retreat or in the monastery, the real life monastery experiment. Just looking at the words, seeing what Socrates is saying, playfully, mind you, but still, and then see where that takes you. It goes on and on about justice. Justice is quite a big thing for Socrates or for Plato. I don't know. The more Socratic Platonic dialogues is really all over the place, almost like this passage when it comes to the virtues. Whatever virtue there is, it's being expounded, explored. And then, of course, there's the Great Republic, which centers around justice. And one could argue all of Plato's life work in trying to set up a state that will not condemn his beloved Socrates to death. Do not be faint of heart, I wrote down. Whenever you go exploring and go on the adventure of finding truths, whether it be playfully, as Socrates seems to be doing in this dialogue, or as your life's calling in a laboratory, you know what I mean. Do not be faint of heart. And when he wrote about how the words for understanding, wisdom, phronesis, which is practical wisdom, seem to have everything to do with motion, I was reminded, like a few passages nights ago, we read something about language itself going round and round. So there's that. One could ponder that for hours as well, sitting still, pondering how your mind goes round and round. And even more so when you use words. I would definitely loved to have gone deeper into this whole idea of practical wisdom, phronesis, being perception of motion or flux. Because practical wisdom, the way I understand it, is the ability, well, there's something of participatory knowing in that. Because it's knowing how to be here now. What is called for in this particular situation. How do I relate to this arena that I'm playing in at this moment of time? Perception of motion or flux. And then Sophia, although he does not say that, but he does say Sophia is dark. And dark is my lady. Could be the more stable connection to the world of being. And Phronesis' practical wisdom. How we live here and now. I thought it was interesting as well that he refers to cause, not as that which moves an object or even that which allows an object to move, but that because of which an object moves. There's a subtle difference there. There's almost a teleological feel to that. Maybe that's just my teleological mind that wants to impose it there. And for a certain part, Socrates goes into explaining what he was known for, interrogating people. I did have sort of a sense of him being in touch with people of more mystical inclinations, maybe the mystery schools, whispering in his ear that part. And how he keeps asking questions. Also the extremely symbolic language, which everything is explained, does feel quite mystical. But him just going into greater perplexity about, well, the nature of justice, the nature of every single virtue, if you look at the more Socratic dialogues. Aporia is what they're also known as the aporetic dialogues because it usually ends in confusion and not knowing. Aporia means literally no way, not being able to see any way further. Being more perplexed than you were before you began learning. I would also argue that that is actually a sign of good learning. If you do not discover your own ignorance by learning and feeling more and more complex, because then you're not there yet. Not that I'm there, but yeah. I would hope, I believe that goes without saying. And then I also wrote down art, techne, as the possession of the mind. I would also have liked to explore that. And other dialogues, I think the Ion and the Phaedrus, maybe. It feels very Phaedrus-y. Socrates speaks about how one can only, poetry, poesis, but any form of art really. Not techne maybe in the technical sense of the skills like weaving. One can often only create art with the help of a little bit of divine madness. Possession of the mind. I like that. Maybe it's good to sometimes allow your mind to be possessed. by art. I'm recording a bit earlier than usual because I need to go to bed. I'm gonna drink my medicine, which will make me sleepy, but I'm not gonna go to bed alone. I got Simone Weil today. I ordered it online. Oh, I'm reading it for the unsolicited advice reading group. I can't imagine that anyone doesn't know about Joe, but I will link it in the description if you're interested. Thank you for being here. I hope you have a great night. And may the spirit of Sophia be with you, my dark lady.